dreams or live your fears? And I think the majority of people actually are not living their dreams, but are living their fears. So I want to ask you a question. What are your fears? What are you afraid of? What are you scared of? Because we all have fears, don't we? We all have something that's blocking us, that's holding us back. And as we begin to look at life, what we realize is that the reason that most people are not living out their true potential, are not doing all of the things that they would really like to do, is because of fear. Some people call fear false evidence or expectations appearing real. I'm reminded of the story of a guy that was living in an area where he had some new neighbors, and these neighbors had a bulldog. And when he came home every day, this bulldog used to chase him about a half a block from his house. Every day, he would have to streak home. I mean, he would just run. This bulldog would be right on his heels. And so he just got tired of that, because he would go home about a half a block away from home. He would look around for this bulldog, and he wouldn't see him. And he would go walking casually along, and this bulldog come out of nowhere, woo, 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 and start chasing him. He'd run home. So this one day, he just got tired. And so when the bulldog was running after him, he started running. He saw a rock, and he stopped to pick it up to throw at the bulldog. And when the bulldog got up on him, he started barking. He realized the bulldog didn't have any teeth in his mouth. Then he started chasing the bulldog. If you don't get on away from it. Because the most the bulldog could have done is gum, you know. And so, you know what? Most people go through life running scared. Running scared from things that have no teeth in them. Because they're false expectations appearing real. That, see, we're brilliant enough to scare ourselves to death. You realize that? There are some people actually who get a kick out of scaring themselves to death. I remember the last frightening movie I saw. It was The Exorcist. I will never forget. I was so frightened when I came home. I'll never forget. I drove in the driveway, and I had already called my former wife and said, listen, turn the lights on. I was coming in the driveway, and I was getting out of the car, and all of a sudden I couldn't get out. I started blowing my horn. I said, Madeline, they got me, they got me. She came to the kitchen and said, take your seatbelt loose, fool. I said, oh, okay. I was frightened out of my wits. But there are a lot of people who they get off on that. They love it. I'm a person, my brother is a paratrooper. My twin brother, he's in the military, career man. I would love to jump out of an airplane to parachute. I'm scared, though. I mean, I really admire my brother for that. I would really love to be macho man like that. What are the things that you fear that's been keeping you from living your dream? That's been keeping you from doing some things that you would like to do? Just think about those things. And how do we begin to handle that? Abraham Maslow said that life is about growth. And he said, you can either go back to your comfort zone, and there you won't find any growth, or you must be willing to go forward and face your fears again and again and again, because you're never going to have a fear-free existence. I mean, some fear is acceptable and legitimate. There are some things that you really should be afraid of. Now, you shouldn't allow it to immobilize you. You acknowledge it, you take it into account, and you carry yourself accordingly. There are times that we should proceed with caution. But it's the difference between being stopped by fear. It's the difference between having a fear and the fear having you. So what do? One, acknowledge it. And knowing that it's okay. Don't condemn yourself for being afraid. It's perfectly fine to have some fears. You acknowledge your fears, you embrace those fears, and then you move on. You act on whatever it is that you fear. Because once you embrace it, see, what you resist will persist. What you resist will persist. So one of the most important things is to begin to embrace your fear. The fear of bodily harm, that's legitimate. When I was a disc jockey in Columbus, Ohio, you know, I was young, about 22, 23, thought I was tough, and I was on the air, and Al Green, who was a great performer at that time and still is now singing gospel music, had a record. His first hit record was Backup Train. So a guy came in the town and was impersonating Al Green. I happened to know Al Green because I'd already booked him. And so when I found out this guy was impersonating Al Green, I came on the air and did an editorial about him, and I exposed him. He was a rather big fellow, and so he had the word out that when I see this guy Les Brown, the disc jockey, I'm going to knock him in the mouth for having a big mouth. So I was driving down Main Street in Columbus, Ohio, had my son in the car, and I always had this little saying, hey, if anybody ever put a threat on me, I'm going to make them honor it. So I saw this guy in the street. So I pull around. I said, excuse me, I'll be right back. Got out of the car. I said, hey, man, I heard you said that you were looking for me. I'm Les Brown. He said, you are? I said, yeah. I said, what is it? I'm the one that said that you were an imposter. I said, I want to know what you're going to do about it. He opened his coat and he had a gun there. I say, but whatever I said to hurt your feelings, I want you to know it's all right. Acknowledge your fears, carry yourself accordingly, and do what makes sense for you. Well, one major fear I've always had is a fear of the dentist. And this fear had me. I didn't have that fear. And what really reinforced it, you got to watch things that can feed your fear. I saw a movie that most people would not remember. This movie was starring Dustin Hoffman. It's called The Marathon Man, with Laurence Olivier. When he's trying to get a confession out of here. And he took this drill out. Let me tell you something. When he went in Dustin Hoffman's mouth with that drill, I had $1 worth of popcorn. That popcorn went everywhere. Oh! Do you know I could not go to the dentist for 5 years? I had left broadcasting, went to the Ohio legislature, had an impacted wisdom tooth. Now that hurts. And I would call, and as soon as the people would answer the phone, I would hang up. That's how frightened I was. Dr. Hamler's office, boom, I'd hang up. Then I got to the point where I could just ask for an appointment. Hello? And I wouldn't give my real name. Because I knew I wasn't going to keep it. I'd give anybody's name. Joe Jiggly Jim, it didn't matter. Then pretty soon I got to the point where I could give my name. It was about 4 years after that, you know. I said, my name is Les Brown. Then I would call back and say, look here, due to my legislative agenda, I won't be able to make it. So the lady finally said on the phone, she said, you're scared, aren't you? I said, no, I'm not. She said, then why don't you come in? I said, that's none of your business. She said, you're not coming in because you're scared. I wish you just would not waste our time. And she hung up. I said, you have no right to do that to people like me, you know? So finally, to make a long and short of it, I was hurting so bad, I said, wait a minute, I've got to do something. And I said, what am I afraid of? Go there and handle it. And I said, man, Dr. Hamler, I just can't hear this drill. I mean, if you can do whatever, I don't need to hear this drill, that sound. You know, that's what gets me, that drill. Don't pull that drill out on me. He said, just calm down, calm down. And it wasn't really bad as I thought it was. One of the things you find out that when you face your fears, it's not as bad as you think it is. And when people tell you, I just can't do it, I can't handle it, I mean, really, I can't handle it, what they're envisioning is that they're not going to be here. They're going to clock out like you're going to die. And guess what? We all had occasions when we confronted our fears, we had to do something we felt uncomfortable with, we didn't want to do it, and we did not die. They didn't come take us and put us in a box somewhere. Am I right? So what we've got to begin to do, how do we handle that? What's the process? Because it's all up in here. One, I think, is imagine the worst case scenario. I just imagine that he went in my mouth and with this drill and that I just croaked out. Then I imagine, that's the worst case scenario. Then I had another technique I used. Visualize yourself being more than able and capable of handling it. And I used to have a tremendous inferiority complex about speaking before people that I felt who had more going for them than I did. Because I'm not college trained, I used to feel that college people were the most intelligent people on the planet. And there was nothing I had to say for them. And what will they listen to me for? That's the way I felt. And so I had to visualize myself speaking before them, speaking before various audiences that had more going for them than I did, and realize and appreciate my own value and that I was a worthwhile person, even though I didn't have all going for me. I didn't have the money, I didn't have the education that they had. So part of the process is seeing yourself, being worthy, being capable, having what you need to make you a worthwhile person, and that you're more than able, and that you deserve to be listened to, or you deserve to have that dream and that passion and whatever it is that you see and envision there. You've got to see it in your mind's eye and know that you've got what it takes. Repeat after me, please. I must see in my mind's eye. See myself. Confronting my fears. Handling my fears. I'm more than able. Shake somebody's hand on your right and left and say, you got the right stuff. So deciding as you look at your life, as you look into the future and say, what fears am I holding on to? What fears that I'm allowing to imprison me, that's keeping me from breaking out, that's keeping me from living up to my true potential, that's keeping me from really being happy, that's keeping me from having a sense of adventure and excitement in my life? What's keeping me from controlling my destiny? What fears that I'm giving that permission to? Notice what I said, that we must give our permission to fear to immobilize us. Because whatever discomfort you experience, whatever challenges or difficulty that it is, you got to handle it. Got to go up in there and wrestle with it. Will it be easy? No. Will it be challenging? Yes. A friend of mine who's going into recovery. He's been addicted to crack cocaine for years and alcohol. And he was talking about how challenging it was and why he was dreading going into cold turkey. I said, what do you want me to tell you? That it's going to be a picnic? No, it's not. It's going to kick your butt? Yes, it is. Are you going to want to die? Yes, that's a part of it. But that's just what you must go through in order to get where you want to go. And guess what? You are strong enough to do it. You're strong enough, and your life is worth whatever you have to go through to get past this addiction. Whatever you have to do. This dream you got, whatever you want to do, will it be easy to just run out there and do it? No. Will it happen overnight? No. Will it be a struggle? Yes. Will there be times when you can't make ends meet? Yes, that's a part of it. Will there be times you won't know what to do? Yes, that's a part of it. Will you have some opposition? Will things go wrong sometimes? You will have many visits from Murphy. Now, if you're saying, well, who's Murphy? Don't worry. Somebody must have told us someplace along the line, I don't know where, but somebody must have told people, oh, life is going to be real easy. No. If they told you that, I've got a special announcement. They lied. I'll never forget. I had a special piece of legislation I wanted to get passed, and I said to a guy, I said, look here, can I count on your vote? He said, yes. And look here, if I can't count on it, let me know. There's another guy that owes me a chip, and I can call on that. And I won't need your vote, but I do need it. If you say you're going to do it, do it. He said, you can count on it. Legislation came up. He voted against my bill. My bill passed. I went back to him and said, hey, I told you I needed the vote, but if you couldn't give it up, let me know. I would get somebody else. I said, why did you tell me? He said, I lied. I was in shock. How many of you that life just wore you out? That you didn't expect that? You thought you'd go to school, get good grades, get a job, and you came out here and you'd be able to get a job and live happily ever after, and you say, they lied. Yes, they did. They never told me, you know that song said, Mama told me there'll be days like this. They didn't even tell us that. Isn't that something about life is challenging? I mean, it's some stuff you get out here, you didn't read it in a book nowhere. Didn't nobody warn you that it was going to come down on you like this? That's called life. There are all kind of challenges like that. So what's the next piece is that you accept yourself, then you accept the fear as a fact and not a force. See, when you accept yourself and you accept fear as a fact, that means that it's something that happens. It's something that you're going to experience, but it is not a force to hold you back. It doesn't have any special power other than that you give it. So you accept the fact that you are afraid, and then you move on anyhow. You move on past it, and you do whatever you've got to do. I was at a big motivational rally for a gentleman by the name of Dexter Yeager down in the Carolinas. I was standing backstage, and I had to go out. I was the last speaker on the program. It's the first time I'd been in a stadium of this size, over 10,000 people. You couldn't see the people because the lights are just blaring in your eyes, called Free Enterprise Day. I was afraid. My heart was beating fast. I was just pacing back and forth. And Dexter said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah." "Yeah, I'm all right." So I said, "Wait a minute, just calm down. Calm yourself. Hold a minute. It's all right, Les. It's all right. All right. Just be as scared as you can be." See, that's why I say embrace that fear. Just try and see how scared you can really get. And start breathing deep. So the guy came back and said, "Are you about to die?" So I said, "No, I'm fine." But after I started embracing it and trying to make myself as afraid as I can get and imagine what's the worst thing that I could go out there and do, my mind go blank and I fade on stage, that's the longer they gave me my check. But once I started laughing at myself, I started talking to myself. I said, "You know you scared today?" And I said, I just calmed myself down. And I went out there and I cooked. And that's what you got to do. I had another experience where I was at a major corporation, and it was one of my first major presentations I was going to do for this corporation. And I had 4 other presenters that had large firms. And one of the things that you've got to do is you've got to watch your inner conversation and discipline your thinking and your imagination, because if you don't, your mind will take you on a wild trip. So my mind said, "Hey, Les." I said, "What?" "These guys are going to wipe you out. You can't compete with them." Because I heard these guys sitting over across from me, and they were talking about all that they had going for them. And so I started doubting myself, and I became afraid, and I was thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't go in there. And so I knew then, and this is what I suggest to you, sometimes you got to talk to yourself. Talking to yourself, could be a good exercise. It might be the only intelligent conversation you ever get. So I got up and I went to the bathroom. I started talking to myself and said, "Les Brown, let me tell you something. What do you care about these guys and their firms and all their money? You got 6 children you've got to feed. You got a mama you've got to take care of home. You ain't got nothing to lose." I went in that room and looked at those people. I said, "Don't you do nothing till you hear from me." And I got that contract too. You got to do it. So when you have your lower self talking to you, telling you what you can't do, part of what you've got to do is be your own motivator. And you can't talk casually to yourself. You can't stand around and say, "Now, you must calm down now." No, that subconscious mind won't hear that. You've got to have a good conversation to yourself. Hey, and answer yourself too. Don't pay these people any attention. You answer yourself. "Hey, what you gonna do?" "I'm going there and get off." "All right, very good. Go in there and take care of business." You've got to talk to yourself, and you build yourself up, and you'll feel your energy level coming up, and people will feel that around you. See, now, if you go through life being afraid, people can sense that. They can pick up that fear. So that's why you've got to stand up inside yourself. I'm reminded of the little boy that was on a bus, and some bigger fellows were picking at him, And so he wanted to move from by them. They were thumping him on the head. And so he stood up just to get from by them, and they would push him back down. And he would stand up again. They push him back down. And he stood up again. They pushed him down, held him down. He said, "You might hold me down, but I'm standing up inside myself." And that's what you got to do in life. See, when you are not filling your life with the things that you are capable of doing. See, we all have some stuff that we've been given. And I don't think that it's optional for us to sit on what we have. See, if you're sitting on what you have, what you've been given, and I think everybody's been given something to bring to the planet, that only you can do that, only you can perform that, only you can initiate that activity. And if you don't do that, if you're not filling in your life with your life work or your mission, then there are gaps in your life. And what we do when we're not living out our true identity, we begin to fill the gaps. We fill the holes with garbage, alcohol, drugs, worry, self-destructive behavior. So when you begin to look at your life and you know that you're not doing what you can do because you have allowed yourself to be held captive by your fears. Now, when you don't have a true appreciation and acceptance for who you are, and you allow yourself to be immobilized by fear, what happens in the process is that you begin to abuse yourself. You begin to sabotage your life, you begin to sabotage your dreams, you begin to unconsciously work against yourself. You become your own worst enemy. So what do you do about that? Well, you begin to realize that your dream and your gifts have so much meaning and so much value for you till your hunger for them will begin to push you past the fear. Your hunger to have them will give you a special drive. As you work on yourself, as you begin to acknowledge your true identity, the true power that you have, the true capacity you have to bring about change, the miracle working power that you have within yourself to do the things that you want to do. When you take them on, I'm reminded of a man who, this gentleman was doing a special study of a special tribe in Africa, headhunters. And he had difficulty in developing a relationship with these tribesmen because of the fact that he had fear. He had fear they were going to take his head. I tell you, all fears aren't bad. That was a legitimate fear. That's a good fear to give you a headache. So he worked there for a long time with no effort, no progress in developing a relationship and rapport and being able to achieve a level of trust. So finally one night while he was in bed, he was thinking about it. I said, what is it that you came here to do? What is your life work as a missionary? He said, I wanted to study these tribesmen. I said, what's the worst thing that they can do to you? Kill you. And he just decided, hey, this is what I came here to do. I know that there's some risk involved, and I'm going to do it, come what may. He said, I'm not going to be afraid anymore. He went back the next day, and he started doing the work and trying to talk to and interview many of the members of this tribe. And they began to respond to him. They threw out the welcome mat to him. And years later, when people came to see what his progress was, they asked him, how were you able to do this? How did you convert the relationship from being hostile to that of being positive? And he said something I think has value for all of us. He said, when life can no longer threaten you with death, he said, what else is there? What else is there? And the majority of the fears that we have are not life or death fears. They're not those kind of fears. But through our imagination, we blow them out of proportion and we give them more power than they actually have or deserve, and we permit them to govern our lives. We permit them to determine how far we can stretch out on our dreams and discovering our stuff. And as we begin to look at ourselves and begin to, wait a minute, just getting to the point as you assess yourself and begin to prove yourself and just say, wait, hold a minute. I've been sweating this out. What's the worst thing that can happen to me on this? Will it kill me? Will I die? Why am I going through all of these changes over this? How much power does this really have? And am I the one that's feeding the power into it? See, a lot of times we allow ourselves to be fed and to be programmed into being afraid. I mean, you watch the news and read the newspaper, you'll be scared to come out the house. Am I right? You'd be afraid. So what kinds of things, what kinds of thoughts are you feeding your consciousness? What kind of things are you putting in your mind that will enable you to either move forward or to justify why you're staying where you are? Another piece that I look at, that when I finally decided that I was going to go to the dentist, the pain was so great. I couldn't hold out any longer. All of a sudden, the fear didn't matter. I can't but take me. Now, some people need fear, you know.